The NFL is an ever-changing league, and very rarely do teams' true core players stick around for more than a couple of seasons. And when teams are on the verge of having to blow up the roster, teams will try and do whatever they can to patch up holes to stay competitive, knowing full well it's more than likely not going to work out in the long run. It's very similar to putting a band-aid on a major wound, and predictably that does not work out. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing a couple of NFL teams that should blow it up because what they are doing is not working. There may be a surprise or two, but none of the teams in today's video have not been to the divisional round of the playoffs since at least 2018, and in some of the teams' cases even longer. And there is a lot to dive into in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are going to start today's video with the Carolina Panthers. This one is pretty obvious as they are not a good football team. They have some decent pieces for the next regime to come in and work with, and their defense could very easily be one of the best in the NFL. Brian Burns has always been one of the most underrated pass rushers in the league. J.C. Horn is an up-and-coming corner, and I do think he will have a second season similar to what A.J. Terrell of the Falcons had a year ago, and Jeremy Chinn is a very good safety too. But the offense is awful and will hurt the defense over the course of the season. They did beat the Saints in Week 3, and congratulations on beating a division rival, but there was a lot that had to happen within that game just for them to get the win. They had Laviska Shenault, of all players, have a 60-plus yard touchdown, which is shocking enough in itself. They also had a defensive touchdown, and defensive touchdowns are very rare and cannot be counted on each and every week. But what is most concerning regarding their offense is they have the third fewest yards in the NFL, ahead of only the Bears and Steelers, whose offenses have also been anemic through 3 weeks. They have the second fewest passing yards as a team, despite having DJ Moore, a receiver they gave a $61 million extension to this offseason, and a player who inexplicably has 7 receptions through 3 games. DJ has 3 straight 1,100-yard seasons from 2019 through 2021 and has been productive despite being in a less than ideal situation. He is currently third on the team in receiving yards behind Robbie Anderson and Laviska, and only has 9 more yards than tight end Ian Thomas. The Panthers are very much failing DJ as an organization, and he has not been close to being able to fully maximize what he can do. The Panthers are also a mess under head coach Matt Rule, and Baker Mayfield is not the answer. He finished Week 3 against the Saints 12 of 25 for 170 yards and a touchdown, and even that is not an impressive stat line, and if you take away the clear outlier of a 67-yard touchdown by Laviska, Baker then finished the day 11 of 24 for 103 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions, which obviously is not good. The infamous Matt Rule stat has to be shared, but they are 1-25 in the Matt Rule era when an opponent scores 17 or more points. They need a franchise quarterback. Not a Sam Darnold, not a Baker Mayfield, not a Kyle Allen, and no offense here, Panthers fans, but not Cam Newton at this point in his career either. They have some pieces, but they need to get rid of a lot of that offense and start fresh this offseason. And next up is the Indianapolis Colts, who are coming off of a win against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is no small accomplishment. However, there were a ton of things in this game that the Chiefs did that they normally do not do. They missed a field goal, they muffed a punt, which basically gave Indy a free touchdown, they had more penalties than Indy, and were held to 17 points. Despite all of this, Kansas City nearly won the game, and credit Indy for not fumbling a win in a lot of ways that was handed to them, but I'm not sold on the Colts moving forward, and am definitely not sold on 2022 Matt Ryan. I don't think he is the answer past this year, and the Colts need to draft a quarterback. 2019 was obviously unfortunate from a football standpoint, with Andrew Luck retiring right before the season started, but the Colts have since signed Phillip Rivers, traded for Carson Wentz, and now traded for Matt Ryan. In some ways, I do believe Andrew Luck retiring as abrupt as he did, and at 29 years old, has extended both head coach Frank Reich and GM Chris Ballard's tenure with the team. In the past 3 seasons since Luck retired, they have one postseason appearance, which was a 2020 wildcard loss in Buffalo. Their next 3 games are home against Tennessee, at Denver on Thursday night, and home against the Jags. Who knows how this team will fare in these games? And even in the scenario they win all of these games, I don't love their long-term outlook for the season because they're not a top-tier team in the AFC. In the very unpredictable AFC South, in a scenario where the Colts win the division this year, which is not entirely out of the equation at this point in time, I think we can all agree, Colts fans or not, that they are not going to be the number 1 seed in the conference, and I highly doubt this team's ability to go into a Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati, or Kansas City in January with everything on the line and win a game, let alone multiple, which that would require for them to get to the Super Bowl. I think the Colts are, in a lot of ways, stuck in mediocrity is not the right word, because you can convince yourself if everything goes right, they can be a team no one wants to play, and a team that would be a very difficult out in the playoffs. But they're not a great team by any means either. They are a team that if they were to ever make a deep run, every single thing would have to go right, and they would have to have games like they played against Kansas City on Sunday, for example. It is time to go all in for a young quarterback instead of this revolving doors method. They have a limited time frame with players like Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson, who are now, believe it or not, in year 5, and Jonathan Taylor, as we know, like all running backs, will not be the player he is until he's 35 years old. Normally, I'm not for trading a lot of draft capital for one quarterback, like the 49ers did for Trey Lance, but Indy is in a unique situation, and if they have the chance, I like the idea of them getting a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young if the situation allows. Next up is the Arizona Cardinals, who are a 1-2 team and whose only win is a comeback win over the Las Vegas Raiders, who are the last winless team in the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury was brought in to innovate the offense and to bring the best out of Kyler Murray, and there's been flashes over the first 3+ years, but never as consistent as the Cardinals would have liked. Their roster is very underwhelming as they have some good players on the team, but not good enough at key positions. And losses like a 44-21 loss to the Chiefs and like a 20-12 loss to the Rams are going to happen throughout the season. The Cardinals are not going to beat the premier teams in the NFL. Their next 3 games are at Carolina, home against Philly, and at Seattle, and there is a chance they win 2 out of those 3, but they will probably not go into Philly and beat the Eagles with how they are playing. The Cardinals are certainly not a bad team, but they're not a good team either, and are stuck in one of the most frustrating spots a franchise can be in. They made the playoffs last year, but they were hopelessly outmatched and lost by 23 points. There's consistently being below average, which is where the Washington Commanders are, and then there's consistently being average or right above average, but not good enough to win anything substantial, and that's where the Arizona Cardinals are and have been for some time. They gave Kyler Murray a very big contract extension, so the next regime to come in will have Kyler for the next few years, and they will also have to pay Marquise Brown as well, as they did not give up a first-round pick for a 1 or 2 year rental. The Cliff Kingsbury hire was an interesting experiment, but we are 4 years in, and the most we have to show is a 23-point playoff loss to the big brother in the NFC West. It's time. Get Cliff Kingsbury and GM Steve Keim out as well. Next up is the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 0-3 and would be on the clock if the NFL draft were taking place at the moment. They are an interesting team as they have countless good players and very well could be the best 0-3 team in the history of the NFL. Obviously, that's something Raiders fans don't want to hear, but when it's time, it's time. The Raiders have been a tale of 2 halves team this year, and in the halves they are kicking ass. They are beating their opponents with a combined score of 48-7, but when they are getting their asses kicked, they are getting beat by a combined score of 70-16, which unfortunately includes the big comeback win the Cardinals had against them. But starting out 0-3, not only in this conference, but more specifically within the AFC West, is a death sentence for a season. It's very unfortunate the Raiders are 0-3 to start the Josh McDaniels era, but the 2022 Derek Carr has been a much different player than the 2021 Derek Carr. He is completing passes at nearly 8% less than what he was a year ago, and the turnovers have not gone away. For everyone that was praising Derek Carr all offseason, people kind of forget that he turns the ball over quite a bit and finished the season last year with 14 interceptions. And that is rearing its ugly head to start the season again, as he has 4 interceptions in 3 games. And the one game that sticks out far and away the most is a 3-interception game on the road in what eventually was a 5-point loss. Should the Raiders in 2023 try again with what they did this year and try and believe all offseason only to fall short again? To me, the answer is no. Derek Carr's contract is very movable, and they could set themselves up for a nice future and give Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler a chance to pick their quarterback. The decision will come at some point, and Carr turns the football over entirely too much for the Raiders to ever win this division. So, as comfortable as it is, the Raiders need to make this decision sooner rather than later. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, now is the time I ask you to please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would be very much appreciated and help tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please check out the second channel where we rebuild teams in Madden. The link is in the description. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.